Hey, folks, this is Mark Joyner, and welcome to episode number 1 of the Mark Joyner Show. This has been a long time in the making, and I could not imagine a better guest or a better topic for episode number 1. We will talk about this beautiful guest here in a moment. First, let's talk about the topic. So this is Dr. Joe Vitale, and he was the star of The Secret. Now, if you guys haven't seen The Secret, and you guys are curious about that, you guys can go to my personal Facebook page. And Joe and I had a long conversation about the topic of the movie. Now, we're not going to be talking about that today, all right? But if you guys want to see a rather long conversation about the topic of the movie and how Joe's thoughts have changed about some of those ideas a little bit over the years, go to that URL you see right down there, and you guys can look at my videos. And that we could consider that kind of episode 0 of the Mark Joyner Show, because that was a perfect way to kick it off. So what is this about? This is about the marketing secrets behind The Secret. Okay, now The Secret, a lot of people don't know, this thing started out as a woman who was flat broke, started with nothing, and on a $0 budget created a multi-million-dollar empire. Now that in itself is an extraordinary feat. She went on to make millions of dollars. Joe can give us some of the details about this. She has launched a series now of #1 best-selling books. It seems like she can't publish a book that doesn't go #1 at this point. And Dr. Joe Vitale is one of my oldest and dearest friends. Joe and I, as good friends do, have gone through triumphs and tragedies together, and we have been there for each other through both of those things and helped each other and experienced those things both as well. And he is one of the greatest marketing experts alive, one of the greatest in history, really. And there's nobody better qualified to talk about this topic than Joe, because not only is he a profound marketing genius, not only has he accomplished so many great things, he's written, you're up to almost 100 books now. Is that right, Joe?
Somewhere there. I quit counting because I'm too busy writing books to count the books.
Take note of that, people. He has produced now over, I think, a dozen music albums. Is that true?
Yeah, I think it's 15 or 16, yeah.
15 or 16. He's a singer-songwriter, marketing genius, extremely well-published author. Many of those titles have gone to #1. Joe also understands the psychology of marketing better than anybody. And he was the most featured star of the movie The Secret out of all of them. He had more screen time than anyone in both versions. A lot of people don't know there were 2 versions of that, than anyone else. And he got to see behind the scenes everything that happened with the marketing of this film. He knew the marketing team. He talked to these guys, probably contributed a lot, I imagine, to the marketing plan. So the man you see in front of you here is partly responsible for a lot of this. Not to take anything away from Rhonda and her team at all, but I'm sure that Joe's contributions certainly helped, because she used a lot of the tactics that you and I had been using for, probably about 10 years before she even started. She just did it bigger and louder than anybody else. So Joe, welcome, my brother.
Of course, always great to be with you. Looking forward to this moment, and congratulations on this show. I'm flattered to be
Thank you for that.
The #1 guest here, the first guest.
You are, man, you are. And let me just tell everybody, by the way, I want you guys to go to this website. If you want to learn anything more about Joe, go to VitaleLifeMastery.com. And let me tell you this, anything Joe produces is worth paying attention to. He's got some amazing stuff going on at VitaleLifeMastery.com. Everything that Joe does just gets better and better and better over time. He is an endless, relentless learner as well. And and if you guys saw that previous conversation we had, you know that he is very serious about improving himself on a regular basis. And I understand you wrote a brand new book. Speaking of books, is that true?
Well, you're kind of sneaking the news out because I haven't told anybody. I have my pre-publication copy here from Amazon for me to proof, but it's Money Loves Speed. Oh, Money Loves Speed. It's something I've been saying for 10 years. It's something I've been living. And a mutual friend of ours, Marlon Sanders, he was at a meeting with me and he says, Joe, everybody's attributing that phrase money loves speed to you, but you don't have a book called Money Loves Speed. So I quickly wrote one.
Very, very smart suggestion from Marlon.
Right.
And well, you just lived your language. You quickly wrote the book after you got the suggestion.
Yeah.
I wish I had given you that suggestion because I've been quoting you on that.
Well, I'm very pleased. From Stress to Success, Revealing the 8 Laws of Attracting Money Fast. It's not on Amazon yet, so don't go looking for it, but we are planting a seed. And Mark, thanks for letting me say something about it.
Of course. And guys, go to vitallifemastery.com, sign up for Joe's newsletter for whatever Joe's got going on there, and you will be alerted when that book is available. vitallifemastery.com. Now, with that said, let us dive into the topic of this. And just so you guys know, it is way past Joe's bedtime. And Joe is doing this for me because we're friends and brothers. So I really appreciate this. I wouldn't be doing one this late at night because everybody knows I'm a very early sleeper. So I would do this for Joe, right? But probably not anybody else. We've got about an hour, guys. So what we're going to do is we're going to break this into the first 45 minutes. We're going to be talking about the story and then breaking down the marketing tactics, hitting the high points of that. And then the last 15 minutes, we're going to be taking some Q&A. So if you guys are watching on Facebook or YouTube or Periscope, I can see your comments. If you are watching this on Twitter through Periscope and you reply on Twitter, I won't see those. So you got to go to the Facebook stream, there's 2 Facebook streams, the YouTube stream or the Periscope stream. Wherever you're watching this, the only problem is going to be if it's on Twitter, just click on it, and I think that'll take you to the Periscope, or you can go to Periscope/Mark Joyner, and you guys can see it there. But we will see all of your comments. In fact, I can see all of them. In fact, here's what we'll do. I'm going to show you one right here. Boom! Matt Gill said, "Mr. Fire is here." So
all
if
right.
you guys have questions, I can highlight your questions like that, and that's what we'll do. So I want to get a lot of questions from you guys, because if you don't have questions about this story, you should hand in your entrepreneurship card right now. You are disqualified, okay? Because this is one of the most profound business stories of all time. Joe, would you give us the high points of what went down, and then we can start breaking down the marketing secrets.
The high points. Okay. The high points. The short story is, in 2005, unknown Rhonda Byrne started interviewing people that she wanted to be in a movie. She made it easy on herself. She found out that there was a meeting in Denver of about 50 self-development people. They were all members of a group called the Transformational Leadership Council. I wasn't a member at that time, and I wasn't in that group. She went to Denver and she interviewed everybody. She interviewed 50-some people there. Now, obviously, she didn't use all of that footage, at least not yet. She may yet do it. But she interviewed everybody about what she was calling the law of attraction, which was new to her and was influencing her and helping her pull out of poverty and the gutter of her own mind. And then she went after a handful of other people she wanted to interview, and I was one of them. She had read my book, The Attractor Factor, reached out to me, called me on the phone. Back then, I would answer the phone. And I didn't know who she was, and I was just polite and said, yeah, if you pull it together and you got the money and you want to put me in the movie, I'll show up, thinking I'd never hear from her. But I did hear from her, and I did make the time to be interviewed. I was lucky enough to be one of 24 teachers who were edited into this movie that she called The Secret. She then began to drip a campaign. We'll call it a drip campaign, where she created a teaser that was only 30 seconds long. A little later, there was a 60-second version of it, and she sent it all over the internet. And it was
she did it herself, right?
Yes. She did it in 10 minutes. Talk about money, love, speed. She told me she got inspired. She's a very, I don't want to say flaky, but she's very intuitive, inner-directed. She received the inspiration, as she called it, to make this teaser. She did it in 10 minutes. She used stock footage, stock music and created something that was all royalty free, but it was done masterfully. When I first saw the teaser, before I was even in the movie, when I saw the teaser, I knew that if the movie's anything like the teaser, she is going to make something dramatic. Because she pulled at our emotions. The teaser roused curiosity, which we know from a marketing standpoint is almost relentless in getting under your skin, and you got to find out, what is this all about? So it engaged us on a curious level. It made us want to know more. There were lots of scenes and footage of people we admire, from Einstein to Tesla and some of the other ones. And there was that rousing music that really made it feel like this isn't a show tune. This is something that is like God is coming to visit us. And this is the entry music that you would use on this teaser. That teaser, oh man, that teaser went all over the place because you saw it and you passed it along. This is before, today we're just buried with stuff. In 2005, early 2006, it was a standout. And so everybody would see it. Everybody would talk about it. She was building a mailing list with that. And she very smartly did something I couldn't do. And she waited 6 months before she released her movie. I'm the kind of guy, I've got the Money Love Speed book. It's like as soon as I okay it on Amazon, I'm going to promote it the next day. I'm not going to wait 6 months. She waited 6 months to promote the movie. So the teaser was one thing she did. Getting all of those teachers in one place saved her a lot of time, travel, money. She didn't pay any of them. She never paid me. Interviewed all of them, edited into this talking head movie, and then, of course, it was released online. And you want me to stop there so you can say anything or ask anything or add anything?
You keep going. You keep going.
Well, the cool thing is, this is another marketing point that so many people miss. Every single person in the movie had a following. So every single person in the movie had a mailing list. And every single person in the movie, like me, told our following, told our mailing list. I was the very first person to promote the movie because I was too freaking excited not to. I'm in my very first movie. Yeah.
Now there's something that happened here early on. I want people to know. So when that trailer was there, I believe that everybody who was a star in the movie had a little banner on their website that said, "What is the secret?"
You are correct. She gave me and everybody else a little banner with a little click footage that was just a few seconds about what is the secret. And I had that on my Mr. Fire site for the longest time. In fact, it stayed on there for a decade, I think, because it was so riveting and it was such a curiosity to have it. So she had everybody in The Secret who had a website put that up there. And then people like me, I had my email written to my list months before I was allowed to send it. Months before.
She waited 6 months, right?
Right. Yeah. And we're talking about, maybe not everybody watching this knows, but the personal development field, some of the heavy hitters are people like Jack Canfield and John Asseroff and Bob Proctor and myself. We're all in the movie.
Yeah.
So when the movie comes out, we naturally are going to tell people we're in the movie. For one thing, it's bragging rights. It's a credibility builder. And we wanted to share it. We wanted our list to know. And so I was the very first person to promote it. And of course, John and Jack and everybody else, Bob and the gang, all went in there to promote it. So now you have 24 leaders in personal development telling their list, their millions of followers when you add them all up, about a movie that none of us are getting paid for. There's no affiliate program. There's no money coming in. There's nothing like this. And this is all for Rhonda. This is all for Rhonda's movie.
So people need to understand here, to get somebody to promote for you, all they need is an incentive.
Yes.
And the incentive does not have to be financial. In y'all's case, all it was like you just knew that you got the bragging rights of being in the movie. You knew it was going to elevate your star status, especially if you guys pushed it, because that would mean that the movie would have more legs, and it elevates your brand to do that. So a lot of people think, Mark, I don't have connections. I don't have this. I don't have it. But it doesn't matter what you have or what you don't have. you can make do with what you've got. And if you can get into this I'm going to do a great Dr. Joe Vitale quote here. One of the things I quote you saying all the time is get outside of your head and get into your customer's head, right? Because the customer is, if as the affiliate, he just needs a reason to do it. Doesn't have to be financial. There are many, many reasons people would promote for you.
Yeah, and I think stroking people's egos is the biggest thing you can do to get them to promote. And in fact, I had told you, Mark, I was just in another movie. In fact, there are so many secret wannabes that have been showing up since 2006. I forget how many movies I was in, but one that I went to LA for the premiere was last week, and it was called Beyond the Secret. So when they contacted me, which was just half a year ago, and said they wanted me to be in the movie, I was busy, as you know, going through a lot of stuff that we talked about in the other interview you and I did. And I said, I really don't want to travel. I don't really want to go in the movie. But they said, we'll come to you. And I said, well, I don't really even have a house right now. I'm just leasing one. We'll come to your lease house. Well, I don't have any furniture in my house. We will bring something so that we can set up a camera and do it. So I'm thinking, okay, they're making it easy. And there's the flattery. You know, I never know what movie is going to be the next secret. But here's the point I want to make. During the conversation, they saw my guitars, they saw my albums, and they said they would use one of my songs in the movie.
Oh, perfect.
So not only is that good for me as from a marketing standpoint, but think of me. This is stroking my ego. I am far more inclined to say, oh, please come. I want to share my music. They know I want to share my music. When they say that they will put my music in the movie, I am all over that and saying, yeah, come on over. We'll get chairs, we'll make furniture, we'll do something here, and we'll shoot this film. So this is what's going on with Rhonda, and I think this is what's going on with all the successful campaigns when we're trying to get people to do something we want. Instead of getting them to do it because of our reasons, we need to find out what their reasons are. In my book, as you know, Hypnotic Writing, which you know also well, I said, get out of your ego and get into their ego. That's part of what was going on at that point.
Great book, by the way. And just so you guys know, that was the first e-publishing endeavor that Joe and I did. So how Joe and I met was a mutual friend, Win Wenger. I had not studied marketing formally, but I was just using, what I learned about psychology and military tactics, to create the early online marketing playbook. And Win recommended you. He says, there's nobody I trust more about marketing than Joe Vitale. Wow. Went in and bought a ton of Joe's stuff. And then I remember him mentioning in one of his books that he had a book called Hypnotic Writing, but it was out of print. And I immediately emailed Joe and I said, look, I want to turn your book into an ebook. And back then, nobody was doing ebooks, right? I was the only ebook publishing house. And Joe was like, look, I don't think people want to read these things. It took, I think, about 2 or 3 years before Joe said yes.
I can't believe it took 2 years.
Well, in retrospect, it's easy to say, right? But back then, I understand your trepidation. Everybody was a little bit hesitant about ebooks. Now ebooks outsell print books, right? That's the reality. But here's the thing: when you finally did say yes, and that went out, what did we make? I think about $50,000 in the first day, something like that.
Yeah, I remember waking up the next morning and I had all these receipts in my email box, which I didn't know they were receipts. I thought I was bombed by some email campaign, and I was at first upset, and then I realized they were receipts for orders of Hypnotic Writing that were pouring in while I was snoring in bed.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
I wrote Mark and I said 2 things. First, I don't need to see the receipts. Second, what else do you want? Right. What other books do you want? I'll write them. I'll create them. I'll dig them out of my attic. I'll give you whatever you want, because I tasted the power of ebooks finally. And that's all due to Mark. Thank you again.
Well, And hey, look, I can't take all the credit for that. I mean, you're one of the ones who said yes early on, and that led to me publishing, almost all of the old school direct marketing greats, and a lot of them thanks to your introductions. But I think what's very interesting to note here is that on the note of money, love, speed, Rhonda moved very quickly. She was following that. She was getting outside of her ego and into the ego of all the people that she was trying to influence, not just the viewers of the movie, which were very stroked in the movie, but also the promoters of it. And look at what happened, right? So Rhonda ended up creating an empire. She launched the careers of a bunch of people. There were some things that didn't happen later, that were, may one day happen, right? But I don't think anybody's complaining because everybody, was elevated to a very high status. Now, Joe, when he took hypnotic writing and then reprinted that with us in electronic format, that then spawned a whole hypnotic something empire for Joe, because he went on to write Hypnotic Marketing and then did Matt Gill is watching this right now. He produced a hypnotic writing master or hypnotic marketing master class with you guys. And you've done probably, well over 1 million easy with the Hypnotic brand now. I would say.
My company is Hypnotic Marketing Incorporated. So
now,
awesome. The hypnotic theme creeped through from hypnotic writing to hypnotic selling secrets to hypnotic copywriting to hypnotic storytelling to advanced hypnotic writing to hypnotic selling sentences, more than I can even remember. And that's the other curious thing, because once The Secret came out in 2006 and really just was dynamite, and Larry King did 3 shows on it. I was on the first 2. Oprah did 3 or 4 of those shows. Rhonda was on the very first one. At that point, I was moved into the self-help spiritual category, and very few people knew or cared about me as a hypnotic writer, hypnotic marketer, or any aspect of that. I will occasionally meet people today who will say, I love your early books. And I'll say, well, what are my early books? Because I don't even know. And they'll be referring to hypnotic marketing, hypnotic writing, and that buying trances and all those early books. So The Secret did do a lot for me, but moved me in a different category. I still use hypnotic writing, hypnotic marketing, and all those techniques kind of behind the scenes, but I'm not really known as that at this point. I'm more of the secret guy.
Right. Well, I mean, you're kind of a cross-genre guy, because the people in the know in the marketing world still know and respect you for all of that from way back when. One interesting thing I want to point out about that, one of the roadblocks that prevented us from publishing that ebook was that you didn't have it in a format that we could turn into electronic form. I remember you were like, hey, man, I'll send you one of the last print copies I've got. And I read it and I was like, this is amazing. I remember freaking out. It was so good. And that was what kept me so relentless. And then finally you overcame that roadblock, because I kept saying, Joe, like, tell me what your technical problem is. We'll resolve this. And we finally figured it out. And I want people to understand, sometimes there's one little tiny constraint that prevents them from being able to take action on something. And that technical barrier could have easily prevented us from doing it. We could have both thrown up our hands and said, it's in some old format that doesn't work anymore. So I want people to pay very close attention to that, because I have seen that play out over and over and over again. Now, how did we go from, all right, so we did the initial launch with all of the talking heads in the movie, as you say, promoting it. Of course, we had the big build-up campaign, which I think was probably mission critical. I don't think it would have been anywhere near as successful without that. Then we moved on to the Larry King phase, and then it went on to becoming this massive empire. What are some of the things that happened behind the scenes that got them into Larry King and Oprah, and then took her on to the next phase? This is the stuff that a lot of people are probably not aware of that might be very, very interesting.
Well, I'm going to tell you, this has been true for me beyond even The Secret. One of the highlights in my career was going on Donnie Deutsch's show when he was on CNBC. He had a show called The Big Idea. The Big Idea. And I loved that show. Man, I watched that show religiously. I told everybody to watch it. And when they called for me to be on the show, I was berserk with enthusiasm. I flew. I remember squirming in my seat on the airplane because I was like a little kid, so excited. I was going to meet Donnie Deutsch. I'm going to be on Donnie Deutsch's show. Well, the same thing happened when I met Donnie Deutsch as happened when I met Larry King. Neither one of them gave a flip about The Secret. It was the women who were putting together the show behind the scenes who were monstrous fans for the movie. And they were the ones who were pushing to get something done on the movie. Donnie Deutsch took longer because he was more of a business show and he didn't really want to have anything about The Secret on there. He ended up having me on there as kind of a goal-setting guy, and I was the first one from The Secret to go on Donnie Deutsch.
Yeah.
But even in the case of Larry King was clueless. I'm not even sure he even saw the movie. It was the women behind the scenes, like right. Wendy Walker was one of them, who saw the movie and in their heart took on a mission. And this is an aspect of marketing that we don't want to overlook, because when you ignite the hearts and souls of the first group of people to buy your product or service, in this case, it was with The Secret, and those people are well connected, oh my God, they can move mountains, they can get the impossible done, and you don't have to pay them anything. You don't have to pay them anything. Yeah. They do it partly as the job that they already have, but they also do it as an extension of caring for the cause, caring for the planet. So getting on Larry King, the very fact that they called me was amazing. But it was, as I got there and found out, it was because of the people behind the scenes who saw the movie, read my books, and said, we got to do a show.
You know, people have to understand, sometimes they think that they've got to reach out to the main guy, right? You know, when you're dealing with somebody with that level of fame, usually they have gatekeepers and possibly multiple gatekeepers and influencers inside their sphere. And if you can contact them, you can get any kind of way to motivate them, they will influence the big guy, whoever that big guy is. So learning the skills of getting past the gatekeeper is absolutely mission critical for anything that you want to do in business at all. And most people are absolutely clueless about that. Do you have any tips on that, by the way, for how people can get past that?
Yeah, I do. I'll tell you the biggest tip of all, because I'm a book guy, as you know. Have you read the book, The Third Door? Have you heard of The Third Door? There is a book called The Third Door, and I forget the guy's name, Alex Banayan or something like that. You can easily find it on Amazon. Absolutely amazing book. This book, The Third Door, is about a college kid who is from another country, comes over here, and his goal is to meet all the movers and shakers of the world, the Bill Gates, the Warren Buffetts, Lady Gaga, everybody in every category that we would all acknowledge as these are the standouts, these are the gurus in these categories. He's a nobody, and his goal is to find them, meet them, interview them, and do the Napoleon Hill thing, go and record all the material and find out what actually works here. And because he's nobody and he has no money, the first thing he does is say, well, I need to raise the money. How's he got to do it? He lies to get himself on the Price is Right game show. And I say he lied because he'd never seen the show, never been on the show, didn't know how the show worked, but he knew that you could make money if you got on the show and you actually won something. He gets on the Price is Right, and he actually tries to figure out how to play the game. He doesn't know how to play the game by watching the cues from the audience. So they're kind of telling him how to bid. He bids following the audience. Yes, there's metaphors, there's insights, there's meta learning, and all of this. He follows the audience. He bids. He wins a sailboat. He sells the sailboat for $20,000 in cash. He now has $20,000 to fund his search to meet all of these different people. Well, that's only the first leg of all this. The next part of this is, how do you meet Bill Gates? How do you meet Warren Buffett? How do you meet Lady Gaga? And the whole book is what he learned to do and the successes. He did meet Bill Gates. He did meet Lady Gaga. He did not get to meet Warren Buffett. And there's lessons in the ones he met and lessons in the ones he didn't meet. The reason the book is called The Third Door, and this is my answer to your question, Mark, is that he says most people try to reach people by going to the front door. You knock on the office door, you pick up the phone, you call their line. You don't get anywhere because everybody is knocking on the front door. The second thing people try to do is go through the back door. And that's where maybe you know somebody in the band and they'll let you in the back door. Or maybe you know somebody who knows somebody and they can get you a connection to somebody who may know somebody. That's all through the back door. What he found was you usually had to create a third door. And you create the third door with creativity and boldness. Bottom line is, I encourage everybody to go read The Third Door. I have nothing to do with the book. I don't know the author. I read the book and was riveted. And it's the whole idea that I know people sit here and they watch you and they watch me and they got all their excuses. I swear to God, those excuses are ghost. They're air. They're nothing. Yeah. They're actually nothing. Wasn't it Theodore Roosevelt who said, do what you can with what you have where you are? That's it. Right. Do what you can with what you have where you are, and you can go miles down the road. And as you pick up momentum, more things actually start to happen. So that was a long answer, but The Third Door I would highly recommend.
No, it's beautiful. I think it's worth spending a little time talking about. And I want to give people an example of a way that this has been done for books. You know, one of the things that's been most successful for books that I've seen is, by the way, Joe, if you've got some headphones, we've got a little feedback here.
Okay.
I don't know if you have them handy, but if you do, that's great. One of the things that people do is they'll take their book and they'll put it inside a FedEx box and do something very creative inside of it. For example, I've heard of guys, you know, putting inside of the FedEx box a little video recorder saying, hey, you know, if you love the book, you know, here's a return FedEx box label, you know, just pop, you know, shoot a little testimonial video and pop it in this box and hand it back to me. Right. And I mean, only a real jerk is not going to send you back the video recorder. And nobody, I think in the film Castaway, that's the only case in history where a FedEx box remained unopened. Right.
Right.
So this is the kind of creativity and ingenuity that people need to think about. So, okay. So there was a built-in third door in The Secret because it just so happened that it appealed to the female mind so well. And that a lot of the women working production at a lot of shows happened to be into spirituality and all that stuff. And they all saw this. And they just organically got it on the show. So then how did it go from there? So were there any other things that happened? So once they started hitting a groundswell, they started showing up on Larry King and multiple times on Larry King and multiple times on Oprah.
Right.
And so is there anything else that they did there to catapult it?
Well, let me back up because there's one very important thing that I want to make sure we address that will explain why the movie was hitting home with so many people, why the movie was being picked up and loved by people like the staff of Larry King or Donnie Deutsch or Oprah, and why the movie still has legs today. I mentioned that I've been in, 17, 20 different movies. None of them the equal of The Secret. And there's two reasons why. The first is they don't do the marketing that The Secret did. Most of them have the old philosophy, I made a movie, come and watch it. And they expect the theater crowd to show up. So they're not doing the marketing, or they're doing next to no marketing. So they're violating that right there. But the second one is ego. Ego. I mentioned that I was just in this movie Beyond the Secret, and the premiere was last week. I haven't said this publicly, but I'm going to say it now. The movie sucks. The movie sucks. I will not be able to promote it. I will not be able to promote it. Why? It's called Beyond the Secret. They're billing it as The Secret. The original movie taught you how to use the law of attraction for yourself. Beyond the Secret is teaching you how to use the law of attraction to help others. That is a wonderful premise. Wonderful premise. It's nowhere in the movie.
Yeah.
The first 10 minutes of the movie starts off great. There's news footage, there's clips. It sounds like this is going to really wrestle with some of the issues people have with the concepts like law of attraction. But the rest of the movie features the producer.
Yeah.
That's ego. And what I keep finding out is that when you create a product or service and you forget to leave yourself out, or if you're in there, there better be a real rational reason for you to be in that movie. There has to be a reason for you to be watched or to be read or to be bought. and there has to be some sort of charisma, some sort of likability factor. Otherwise, that movie, that product is going to bomb. And so I would say, Ryan Holiday has a book, I think it's called Ego is the Enemy.
That's right.
And I've always hated the title. Ego is the enemy, until I realized my ego doesn't like the title.
Very interesting.
This is the big lesson. Rhonda is in the movie The Secret, but very little. She's got her 24 teachers doing the talking.
Yeah. That's
the way it should be.
I'll tell you, there's a very interesting story. A mutual friend of ours, I won't mention his name because I don't want to out who I'm going to be referring to here. But he was helping a buddy of his produce a movie, and they sent me the trailer for it. And the whole thing was basically making this guy look like Jesus, and I told him, I said, dude, this is terrible. This is absolutely the opposite of what you want to do. Yeah, you need to have your story in there so people can identify with you, so that they can resonate with you. But if all it is a story about you, it's not. People aren't going to be. They're interested in their own lives. Right. One of the greatest marketing truism is, and I don't know who to attribute this to. It's one of these marketing saws that's been repeated over and over again, and that's that everybody is tuned into radio station WIIFM. What's right. in it for me, right? And Rhonda, in the beginning of the movie, told her story so you could relate to her, so that you could say, hey, here's this woman who went through tragedy, and then very quickly got into what is in it for you. Literally, she took about 30 seconds to a minute to talk about how, hey, everything she had experienced tragedy, everything was broken down, and then boom, switch the story. That's how I tend to do it in my marketing too. I think sometimes when you when you start to tell that story, people, their ego kicks in, and it's like nobody cares about the details of it. They just want to know that there's enough relatable about you to talk about. That's it. And by the way, I just want to remind everybody here, in a few minutes, we're going to start doing Q&A. So if you guys have questions, pop those questions in now. All right. So that's a very important point. So how did we get from, so Larry King, Oprah, and that started building its own groundswell at that point. I think exactly. Our mutual publisher, Wiley, Matt over there, the head of the business division, tells me that, hey, when a book gets to 100,000 copies, it starts to take on a life of its own, right? Yeah,
that's 100,000. Mark, The Secret sold 20 million copies. The book.
20 million.
The Secret. 20 million.
Just the book.
That's the book. So when Matt's saying, hey, when 100,000 copies are sold, we got, ground fire going on and it starts to spread. My God, we can't even get our head around 20 million. 20 million. She made $65 million in 2006 alone. $65 million, 2006 alone. From there, the best estimates I can get is that she's brought in, from the movie and the first book, $500 million.
Whoa, okay. That's way beyond what I knew. Okay, $500 million. So that's gross revenue.
Yes. Well, she bought a house and paid $30 million in cash for it.
Damn. Okay. so let's break down where the revenue is coming from. This might be interesting as well. How much of the revenue is from the film? How much of it is from the books? Do you have any details about that?
All the numbers I gave you are from the film and the first book. She has since gone on and written books like The Magic and The Power, and I don't even know what all the different books are. And as far as I know, they're very successful, but I have no numbers on those whatsoever. When the New York Times did a feature on her, and included me and several other teachers, they were quoting hundreds of millions of dollars in 2008. So anyway you look at this, the movie sales and the book sales have broken records that most of us can't comprehend. You're an author, I'm an author, we don't have those kind of numbers. And for her to have it, there's two things we got to look at here, Mark, just to be candid. One is obviously the marketing. But we also have to look at the package. What did she actually create? She created something that really wasn't new, Law of attraction been around since 1906. What she quoted was from 1910.
That's right.
She put it in a format that spoon-fed it to people. So the product was good. The marketing was good. But I don't want to overlook that she used the very principles in the movie to make the movie a success.
Yeah.
She used visualization, mind power, vision boards, affirmations, meditation, all of the things I, and other people have talked about and done to actually influence the success of that movie. It's not just the marketing, not just the product, but there's also a mindset / metaphysics that influenced it.
Well, two things, right? One is, I'm constantly harping on this for people, and it's why I kind of, some people who knew me from the online marketing days, people still call me the father of digital marketing or whatever. And then there's a lot of people who know me from Simpleology, which is a productivity platform. And people are like, why are you switching? And I'm like, I'm not really switching because, you're not going to get the success in business, marketing, or anything if you don't have your productivity dialed in. And it's why I'm constantly harping on fitness and health and all of the mental side of all of this. I think this is a complete package. And when people have any component of that incomplete, they are not complete people, and they're not going to reach their full potential. For me, I started, like, over time, I get more and more aware of this. And that's why I'm more absolutely ruthless about protecting my routine, protecting my health, protecting my schedule, protecting who I'm around. I don't want to be around negative influences. I don't want things that are sucking my time away in my life. I don't want to be around things that are going to, downgrade my health. And I want to have ideas in my mind. This is why I don't watch popular culture that much anymore, because there's so much absolutely negative crap built into popular culture that is programming our minds to be the exact opposite of what we need to be. That we are being programmed to be losers if we watch a lot of films. And some of this stuff is deep. One of our mutual friends, Randy Gage, talked about in his book how the movie Titanic is actually very, very subtle programming for loserdom. Because all the rich people were evil, but it was only the broke kid who gambled his way onto the thing. He was the only decent guy, in the whole thing. And if you look at the film, like when he told me that, I didn't see that at all when I watched the first film. I was sucked into the trance of it. But when he pointed that out, I looked at it and I thought, man, that's so true in so much popular culture. Some of it's overt, but some of it is very subtle like that. The other form, or the other thing that I want to point out here, is that I think one of the things that made The Secret so successful was controversy. And we have a mutual friend who started a Joe Vitale hate website. And he tried to get me involved in this. I said, dude, there is no way in hell you're ever going to get me involved in anything like that. I love Joe, and there is no way I would get involved. He got a little bit butthurt by one of your quotes on Larry King. And Larry King asked a very profound question. You probably know which one I'm going to ask. It was, he said, what about a young girl who is 5 years old, right? And she gets a disease. Is that law of attraction? And you guys were explaining how, hey, look, through the law of attraction cosmology, and if you see us all as having multiple lives, perhaps that is the case. He got so angry about that. And whether or not people believe that or not, that's besides the point, right? The point here is, and if anybody listening to this goes, oh, that's terrible, I couldn't believe that, you're missing the point, guys. The point is that kind of controversial topic in itself drove it, because that Joe Vitale hate website probably sold tons of copies of Joe's books and tons of views of The Secret, because there are people who didn't even know about it, who saw the controversy that it sparked. And there were a lot of, I got to say, I was one of the people out there, never poo-pooing you ever, but saying like, hey, look, if you're watching The Secret and you get the idea that this isn't going to take work, well, it's actually in the movie itself. And in fact, Joe Vitale right here even said inside the book, when the inspiration is there, when the spark from the universe is there, act. That is your job. But there are a lot of people who walked away from the movie thinking, oh, all you have to do is just think thoughts and things are going to come to you. The movie itself didn't even say that, but that controversial topic got people buzzing about it, which was, I loved it because I thought it was just, it played right into y'all's hands.
Well, that's exactly true. You know, I wrote a book called Zero Limits, which is about a controversial healing system called Ho'oponopono. And several people have come to me about making movies. And what I've told every one of them is, I don't want a propaganda movie. I don't want the movie to be something to say, Ho'oponopono and Zero Limits is the holy grail. You need to do this. I'd rather make a movie to make them question whether this is actually useful or is it bogus. Because with that, I'll have controversy, but beyond that, I'll also get people thinking. I'll also have them going into the theater with some sort of open mind, and then they can wrestle with it and they can argue with all their friends, but it'll also create a marketing campaign that'll just kind of like a wildfire go along and ignite a lot of other people who wouldn't have known about the movie otherwise.
Maybe somebody watching this will approach you to do a correctly done Ho'oponopono film. And in fact, I've got a buddy who also wrote a book about Ho'oponopono, who's a great hypnotist I'll introduce you to. Maybe you guys can collaborate on that. He's also a very strong hustler. So we've got a question here from Dan Stanley, and I just want to let people know let's kind of ease into some Q&A now. This is a great one. I want to see more questions here for everybody watching. So Dan Stanley says, what kind of deal would motivate famous people to contribute to a project like The Secret or a multi-authored book with a relative unknown? And I know we've both got some answers on that.
We do. Mark, I got to tell you something I haven't made public either, but this is something that happened just 2 weeks ago. A woman wrote to me on Twitter. Now, you got to stop right there. She didn't go to the front door. She didn't go to the back door. She created a third door. She wrote to me on Twitter. And I almost never look at Twitter, but whatever reason, I happened to glance, and there was this note, personal message. Hi, Dr. Vitale. I'm from your hometown. Okay, so she knows my hometown, and she mentioned what it was in Ohio. She says, I've written a children's book called The One-Eyed Puppy. All right, she's from my hometown. I'm an animal lover. The puppy has one eye. I'm already engaged. She says that she goes into the children's schools in my hometown and reads books, reads her book to the group. And what she wanted to know was, would I be interested in sponsoring all those kids getting copies of her book by me buying them at cost? She signs them, she goes over there, she reads the book, and she hands them to everybody. Mark, that appealed to all of my buttons, my hometown, puppy book, children, good cause. She'd send out a news release, she said, mentioning me, so my own hometown would know, hey, hometown boy did good and he's doing good. Yeah. And I simply wrote back and said, send me a copy of your book and your address, and I sent her a check. I don't even know her name now. I mean, I know I can look it up, but I don't even know her name now. So talk about an unknown person who's writing absolutely cold to me, regarded as famous by some people, asking me to do something that most people would say no. But she found ways to appeal to me. That, Dan, is one way to do it.
Well, that's a beautiful story. And let me give you another one. This is something I believe Joe was involved in as well. So when I did my farewell package years ago, you know, when I said, hey, look, I'm stepping down as an online marketing guru. I'm not interested in being that anymore. I had a lot of people who were coming in and trying to get advice from me. And one of them was this very motivated young kid by the name of Joe Kumar, who kind of crashed and burned publicly after this big success story I'll tell you guys about. I hope the kid comes back because it was such a profound story. He said, Mark, what do I do? He had the same question Dan had. And I gave him the idea that Rhonda Byrne ended up using later on. I don't claim to have invented this. I mean, Napoleon Hill kind of did this in a way with his thing. I told him, look, here's what you do. You don't have your own book. Get a bunch of experts to write the book for you. I'll be the first guy. And then once you have the book written, get all of those experts to promote the book. I said, but what you've got to do is you've got to come up with a really kick-ass question. And I said, so young Joe, you come back to me. This is Joe Kumar. I said, you come back to me with a really kick-ass question, and then let's talk. Okay, and he came back and it was brilliant. And in fact, Russell Brunson reignited this whole idea later on, and I believe he, Russell always does this. He correctly gave credit to Joe Kumar and me when he told the story. But the question was, if you lost everything, and you had 30 days to get it all back, what would you do? And I said, Joe, you nailed it. You nailed it. I said, so I tell you what, here's what you do. Okay, I'm gonna be the first guest, right? I'm gonna write the first entry. Now all you got to do is go out to all these people and use my name. I said, shamelessly use my name. And I believe you were one of the contributors to it. I remember correctly.
Yeah.
Gary Halbert contributed to it. I mean, he got a lot of big, and getting Gary Halbert to contribute to something like that is a big freaking deal, right? I mean, especially back then, Gary was not the easiest guy to reach, at all. But he responded to it, and that led to obliquely ended up, led to me and Gary becoming friends later on. But there's a story from a movie called Never Been Kissed that relates the principle here. And this is sort of a chick flick. And, if you like chick flicks, maybe you'd find it a good chick flick. There's one thing that I took away from that. It was entertaining, right? Not to poo-poo the film, but the thing that was really profound. So this young woman, she was a nerd in school, and then she was a journalist, and she was given the assignment to go back to school and to find out what it's like to be in high school now. And she thought, well, now that I'm older and I'm cool now that I'm older, I'm going to go back to high school and I'm going to be cool, right? Mm-hmm. Much to her shock and dismay, she goes back to high school and realizes that she is just as nerdy as she was. I mean, she was a complete dork in high school. Again, as an adult posing as a high school student. Now, her brother in the film was, the cool, baseball star jock. And after he saw her going through this, he enrolled in the school with a fake name so that he could go in there and help her. He goes in and, and dominates and, becomes socially cool, and then ends up making her cool. And then so what he told her was, he told her a profound secret. He said, Josie, he said, the secret of it is this: if you want to be the cool kids, all you've got to have is one cool kid say you're cool, and everyone else will follow that cool kid.
Very good.
Right? So this, if anybody is in that position where they don't have anything at all, this is yet another third door that you can take if you can get just one person. And one more thing I'll say about this, I don't see more questions coming in now. So if you guys have got about 8 minutes of Joe's time, if you guys have more questions coming in for everybody watching live. I know most everybody's probably asleep and going to be watching the replay, but I'll tell you another way that the third door happens. So a lady approached me recently. She saw that I endorsed one of Wim Hof's books, and she does translation rights for Dragon Door books. And then this was a particular Wim Hof book that was done through Dragon Door. And she saw my endorsement, and she reached out to me and she said, hey, I understand you're a friend of John's. John speaks highly of you. John Duquesne is the owner of Dragon Door. Do you have any titles that we could do? I know you're published with Wiley, but do you have any other books that, that we might be able to do? And I said, yeah, I've definitely got a few things we might be able to work with. So we started talking, and one of the books I presented her was endorsed by you. Now, she didn't notice this in the beginning, but then she started to, I said, look, I said, just get down to brass tacks. Tell me what is going to get the translation rights deals signed by the people that you present it to. Tell me what the trigger is. And she said, well, I'll tell you a story. There's this book called From Homeless to Billionaire. And the story is great, but what really sold it for people was that there was a guy who wrote the intro that all of the people who were doing all these translation rights around the world really highly respect, and just his name alone got him in the front door. Now, it turns out that name was Dr. Joe Vitale, right? And I said, you may have missed this, but if you looked on the first page of the book I sent you, you'll see a rather, glowing endorsement from Dr. Joe Vitale for that particular book. This was Mind Control Marketing, by the way, right? And in fact, yours, you wrote Riveting, Mind Expanding, a Masterpiece, right? She missed that, even though it's right on the top. It's the first testimonial on the video. She missed it somehow, and then she says, "Oh, you don't even need to send me a proposal now." She said, on that alone, I can go do it. So me being inside the Wim Hof book, right, and having the connection with Dragon Door, and then being endorsed by Joe, gave her all the fuel that she needed to push that book out to publish. And I'm in 25 languages now, all over the world. So I might have deals with her, getting that other, yet another book in multiple languages. So we've got another question here from Lee. Lee says, Mark and Joe, thank you for this. You are most welcome. You are both truly marketing legends and visionaries I respect. Thank you. What are your predictions on the future of marketing with data analytics and artificial intelligence? Ooh, that's right up my alley. Joe, do you have any thoughts on that?
No, I do not. I am such a blind visionary. I didn't see the internet coming. I didn't see ebooks coming. I didn't see The Secret coming. Don't ask me what's coming tomorrow because I don't know. I would say, ask Mark.
Right. Well, Joe, I got your back because this is stuff I'm looking at all the time, right? So right. I'm always thinking about this. Lee, here's what I think, okay? And I'm actually publishing something here about this. Not publishing, I'm going to be creating something I'm going to be giving away through Simpleology here pretty soon that talks about this in great detail. Here are some of the things that I think are on the horizon. So first off, and this is something a lot of people are talking about now, with the pixels becoming more intelligent. So as the inventor of the tracking pixel, it's very funny that the tracking pixel that I invented is very different from the tracking pixel now. They still call them pixels, but now it's a JavaScript that's got artificial intelligence built into it. That pixel is gathering data about your ideal audience. And we're getting to a point now where there are marketers who are, basically turning on ads because there's so much data that's been fed to their pixel about who the right audience is. They turn on the ad, they put on worldwide targeting and tell the pixel, find our right customer. And because the pixel is gathering so much demographic and psychographic data about your people, the pixel is smarter than you when it comes to marketing. So in paid advertising, one of the things that people have to look for right now is that. You might want to stop, worrying about all the targeting, but you're going to have to give the pixel data first, right? You have to show it what the ideal customer looks like. Now, in the case of Facebook and Google, you can upload the audiences. They can bounce that against their databases and find out what they know about those people. And they go, oh, these are your best customers. These are the ones that we want to target. Now, on the flip side of this, we have to understand something very profound here. So there's a phenomenon called the Longtail, right? And I'll just draw a diagram here. I'm not sure which direction this is going to look like as I draw it. So it looks sort of like this. Okay, now there was a book that came out years ago called The Longtail. And what this means is that, the top 10 selling anything accounts for an outsized percentage of sales that occurs when you're dealing with somebody like Amazon that has an enormous database. Now, his hypothesis was exactly the opposite of what's happening right now. It's very fascinating, right? So his hypothesis was that the long tail is really important because now with everybody having access to publishing, you're going to make tons and tons and tons of money on the long tail, right? Well, guess what's happening inside Facebook advertising? Precisely the opposite. Precisely the opposite. Even though we as small content producers, and when I say small, I'm talking about if you're not in the $1 billion level, you're a small content producer. Even though we made Facebook what it is, we made YouTube what it is, they don't care about us anymore. Why? Because 90% of their revenue is coming from these guys. This is why Facebook is shutting your ad accounts down left and right, why they're algorithmically disapproving ads, okay? If you're not one of the guys in here, they don't care. You don't have their attention. It is very, very hard to get their attention. So I predict that over time, this is only going to get worse. This is why, I have this thing that I call Integration Marketing Society. You guys can look up a webinar that I did about it called Market Domination on a $0 Ad Budget. I'm advising people to, I'm not saying don't use the ad platforms, but if the only thing that you're using to build your business is the ad platform, you're going to wake up one day and your $1 million business is going to be flatlining. And I've heard this story over and over and over again. In fact, the gentleman that I was telling Joe about, who wrote another Ho'oponopono book, Eric von Sydow, you guys may have recognized him as the guy in the book The Game. He was referred to as Rasputin. You might know about him as Hypnotica. He had been dutifully uploading videos to YouTube for about 10 years. And one day he woke up and his entire YouTube account was shut down. They didn't even give him access to log back in and get his videos. Why? Because he's not here. He's not here. So guys, this is the future, okay? A lot of people are telling us, the big tech platforms are going to make us all rich. I'm telling you right now, in some cases, yes, but mostly, if you're not here, they don't care about you. They couldn't give a rat's ass about you. Pardon my crass language, but that is the truth. And I know I'm broadcasting this on these platforms right now. What I hope is that maybe someone watching from one of these big tech platforms hears this message and says, hey, you know what? This isn't right. We built these platforms on the back of small content producers. We need to respect those people and give them an opportunity to continue to use these platforms. And remember, Google started out saying, don't be evil. But now Google, who owns YouTube, which is all owned by Alphabet, right, doesn't care about anybody who's not here because it only makes, it's only economic sense. I can't fault the big tech platforms for doing this. Now, we can conspiracy theorize about all this we want, right? But the reality is that any business owner would do this too. Why? These guys are a big pain in the ass. They're a real big pain in the ass because if all your revenue is coming from here, all right, and you're like, hey man, I've got billions of content producers, and then you got to deal with every whiny individual content producer, the metrics of running your business are shifted. They're saying, you know what? It costs us so much money to listen to these guys. If we put all of our attention here, it's more economically viable for us to remain in business. So I can't fault the big tech platforms. Okay, so what you've got to do is you've got to start building legs on your business outside of that. And if you go to watch that webinar, Market Domination on a $0 Ad Budget, you can just Google that and find it. That explains the technique that I am advising people to use now that will prevent you from what I think is going to be a mass apocalypse for small content producers, for small businesses. If you ever heard about the Google slap that happened to people, that is nothing compared to what is coming. All right. Something much, much worse is coming for the small content producers. So Lee, that is the best advice I can give you. All of these, the data analytics, artificial intelligence, all of that can help us. But if we ignore this reality, I'm not saying don't use the technologies. What I'm saying is don't put all your eggs in one platform or in the big platforms. There are going to be opportunities for you to use these platforms or to use the technology outside of the big platforms. Another thing that's happening right now, which is really cool, is that everything is becoming decentralized, right? So we've had this pattern throughout history where the period of time in between a paradigm shifting discovery or invention has been having itself throughout history. And we're at a point now where we're looking at a whole other kind of graph that is going on right now. This other graph looks like this. What it is, it's the exact opposite. Okay, so if you look at a graph like this and you look at technology improving, well, when you're dealing with anything exponential growth curves look like this. Linear growth curves look like this. We are in the era of exponentiality. And what that means is that, so if a technology has been taking 1,000 years to get to this point on the exponential growth curve, it means that we're only a couple years away before it going like this, okay? Paradigm shifts are happening in every single industry on the planet right now on basically a daily basis, and you're just not hearing about it because you're overwhelmed with information. Okay, so what this also means is that everything is distributing. So it could be a small-time guy who has access to some kind of powerful technology that creates something that will allow content producers like us to have the same tools that Facebook and Google have in our own hands. That's going to happen too. So everything is getting smaller, faster, more powerful, more available, and less expensive. Okay? So that is the foundation from which you need to be making all of your decisions. If you're not thinking about these two phenomena in your future predictions, you are missing the whole picture of what is going on in the world right now. And most people are not talking about this. What they're talking about is the new shiny object in technology that is the latest and greatest gadget that's going to make everybody $1 million. Okay? If you don't have this larger picture in mind when you think about those tools, you're missing the whole show, because this is the real thing. Okay? And by the way, what we have coming around the corner, people don't realize how radically the world is going to change in the next couple of decades. What is about to happen is going to totally blow your mind. The world 20 years from now is not going to look anything like what it looks like right now. And it's all because of all of this happening. Now, some people, like if you go to Singularity University, Kurzweil and Diamandis and all those guys, they're painting a very rosy picture about this, that technology is going to save our lives. I'm not that optimistic about it, okay? I think basically optimistically because I don't want to be a pessimist, but we can't guarantee what's going to happen when technology like this starts getting more and more powerful, all right? For the people who are painting the rosy picture of it, I think they're very misguided. I think artificial intelligence is extremely dangerous. I think that this radical exponential growth curve of technology is extremely dangerous. You know, it takes us decades sometimes to find out how technologies have affected us, right? When the technologies are changing this quickly, there could be something that could potentially wipe out humanity that is developed and proliferated all across the globe. And then we won't find out until a few years later that it's killing all of us, and it might be too late, okay? That's another thing that we have to be considering right now. And I hate to end this on a note of doom and gloom, but that is the reality. So how do we deal with that? Well, I think that the only way for us to survive what is coming in this world right now is to have a shift in consciousness, Because if everything is getting smaller, faster, more powerful, more available, and cheaper, why do you think it's not going to happen to weapons technology? Okay, we have 3D printable automatic weapons right now. The government said, okay, we'll just make the plans illegal. How did that work out for pirated software and movies? Not too well. You probably downloaded something illegally yesterday, right? Everybody does. Now, governments aren't prepared for this. Governments are not prepared for this, all right? So, by the way, a couple of years ago, we had an assassination attempt, I believe it was in Argentina, of a state figure with a commercial drone. They strapped explosives onto a commercial drone and attempted to assassinate a public figure with a commercial drone. That is just a tiny taste of what we have coming down the pike. Okay, so when I say a shift in consciousness, I mean if we don't all get our heads together and decide not to destroy each other, I don't see how we're going to get through it. That's the real story. That is the real story, and that's what we all should be working on. And that is a nice note to end this on, because I imagine that at Joe's website, Vitale Life Mastery, he has got some stuff designed to work on your mind, okay? I have known Joe for decades, and he is one of the purest, kindest people I know, and he's also one of the most honest people I know, because if you guys saw the show that we just did, you saw how open and honest he was about how his feelings had changed and evolved over the years. Joe is going to give you the real deal about how to change yourself and turn yourself into a better person. That is the future, guys. And I think if we don't do that globally as a species, we're in some pretty damn big trouble. And again, I don't want to end. Pessimism is not the answer. Only only looking at this as, hey, you know what? This is a huge problem. But burying our head in the sands ain't the answer either. We've got to actually face this problem because it's real and it's already here. You all probably have a sense of this happening already. With that, Joe, do you have any closing words that you would like to share?
What I want to do is stand up and applaud what you just said. I was not necessary at all to be on this show. And I think what you need to do is create a show called Shift of Consciousness. And what you just said over the last 5 or 7 minutes should be the opening to that show every time you do it. Because what you laid out there was very well articulated, had enough of a chill to it to get our attention. And you ended it on a positive note by saying, look, this isn't the end of the world. I don't mean to be pessimistic, but what we need to do is have a shift of consciousness. That leads to, how do you shift your consciousness? Now, we were talking about the movie The Secret, and The Secret is an attempt to go in that direction. The Secret is an introduction to a way of running your own mind with one principle, just one principle that introduced called the law of attraction. But there's lots more. And so, Mark, I'm going to lay it out that either on this show or create the Shift of Consciousness show, that you start bringing on some of the people who are known to shift consciousness and some of the people who are known to face the objective reality of situations, but also offer us tools that we can use for our personal life as well as influencing the planetary life as well. So again, I love you. I cherish you. You are a great friend, great resource in my life. I always love getting together with you. And the fact that you interviewed me recently on the very personal stuff, I love doing it. And I also love doing this. When it comes to marketing, there's so many stories to tell that are not about The Secret, but about so many other marketing campaigns that we can just keep talking. I look forward to the next time we are actually in person and we'll talk about these things and give each other a hug. Thank you.
Hey, man. Hey, you're most welcome, and all of that right back at you. And I hope to have you back as a regular guest. And those topics that I brought out, those are the things that I am primarily pushing out there to people these days. That is the foundation of my primary message. So I'm glad you picked up on that. I'm glad you resonated with it, because that is the stuff that I think that the world needs to be hearing about right now. Yeah. And the fact that you recognize that and that it resonated with you gives me some strength and confidence to get out there, because I believe it's quite critical. Joe, thank you so much for being on, man. I can't thank you enough for the contributions you've given me in my life, not just in our friendship, but in the work, because I devour as much of what you write as I can. I don't think I can read as fast as you write, but every bit of it that I encounter always leaves me enriched. So everybody go to vitalelifemastery.com and check out what Joe's got going on. And I'm sure you guys will see Joe back on the show in the near future. Our next guest is probably going to be Russell Brunson, talking about people. If you guys know, he touts me as his first mentor. We're going to be talking about the story of him going from a broke-ass college student to building a company that's now on its path to making $1 billion. We're going to be telling that story. Those are the kind of stories that we're going to be sharing. And we will be working in some of the stuff that Joe has been talking about, emphasized there throughout this when it is appropriate. We'll see how this evolves. But Joe, thank you again. And I will see you guys on the next show.